Scotty, how many weeks out are you?
1 week out on Sunday, bro. Getting close now.
1 week.
I know it's coming around quick, isn't it?
So tell us where you're at, like body weight, kind of what you think you're going to do in peak week. Tell us the state of play.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Body weight's been a little bit up and down in the sense that sleep's been really, really shit. I've just hit that point. Equally, it's coincided with new levels of conditioning, even for me. So I'm really, really happy with where I'm at from a conditioning standpoint. Weight's been hovering between sort of the mid 82s. So I think that's probably as low as it's kind of going to get. And now I'm just slowly closing the gap at the deficit. So low days are gradually coming up and just starting to push in a bit more food. But I've been running 3 up, 4 down, but again, just sort of coasting. So I had a refeed on Monday and then running low yesterday, today, tomorrow. And then I'm going to have a refeed on Friday. And then basically I don't know if you would call it a depletion because I'm not trying to just completely remove all carbohydrate and glycogen, but I'll probably run 3 low days and then I'll replete after that. And I ran a bit of a trial on that a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm just going to gradually push in more food because the show's on the Sunday. Food will start to come up like pushing in a bit more carbohydrate from Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday will still be reasonably high-ish. So I'm thinking it'll be, in fact, I can tell you because I've got it here.
So it's 3 days up. You're on 3 highs before the show.
3 high, but the day before but protein will come down on all 3 of those days, and then it will come down by it'll go from my protein's been at 230, it'll come down to 175 the day before the show, and fats will come up, but carbohydrates. So 550 on the Thursday. I think it'll be somewhere in the realms of 700. I tried 650 last time on day 2 and it wasn't quite enough. I still wasn't topped up the next day. And then the day after that, it'll be 500 and then fats will come up, protein will come down. And then I'll just assess because I'm on first thing in the morning on the Sunday. I only want to have 1 meal in me, but equally, if I had to push in more food, my midsection's pretty tight and sharp, so I could push in a bit more food and it wouldn't look like I had any distension, but I'm just literally sticking to isolate as my form of protein so that I can use foods like rice flakes and cream of rice. And I'm basically just going to use those foods to carb up because I don't get any delay in gastric motility. I don't get any bloating. And as long as I keep protein at around about 30 to 35 grams per meal, I can push in 100, 120 grams of carbs and feel like I didn't eat. But I'll obviously do that over 6 to 8 meals on the day where food's a bit higher on the Friday, and then giving it enough time to clear out, but also using fats to top up intramuscular triglycerides on the day before, and also just to ensure that I allow that carbohydrate to stick because when I get leaner, it's like my body just chews through everything. And so it does take a bit longer. And granted that it's IFBB and everyone competing, or I assume most of them will be enhanced, they'll be a lot bigger. So I want to make sure that I'm coming in as full as I can. And even if I am a little bit spilled, that's kind of the plan to almost be spilled come Saturday so that I can just know that I'm completely topped up and then I just need to hold that. And then I'll just pump up really, really hard the morning of. And I know that I'll be bursting at the brim come Sunday, hopefully.
So 2 things on that, just to get a little bit more detail, is the fat that you're going to be putting in on the day before the show. How is that different in the amount compared to the previous days? And also, what's the fiber through those days also?
So fiber will pretty much stay consistent in fact, it will be exactly the same on the Thursday. The Friday, it will stay at around about most days. My fiber, I think it's 38 or 40 grams a day. And I'll keep that there just to have some veggies in on the Friday, just so that I want to make sure that I can keep digestion going. Obviously want to have a bowel movement given that I'll be pushing in, close to 8,000 calories over 2 days. So you want to have that so that then I can reduce food volume on the Saturday, the day before the show. And fiber the day before the show will be at 24 grams. But that is going to come down. So my last two meals for that day are virtually just rice flour, so cream of rice, banana, and then protein powder, and then
Yeah.
just rinse and repeat, and then peanut butter as well to get those fats in. So fats would normally be at 45 grams. They have been, and on the day before the show, they'll come up to 70 grams.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And then when are you flying up? What day?
So we've got to fly up. Ideally, I would have liked to have gone up Friday, but we've got to fly up early Saturday just because of logistics with kids.
Mhm.
So we're flying up at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. We literally get there, pick up the car, and I've got to go straight to it's World Gym where we're getting our tan. I got the email from ProTan yesterday, so I've got to go. And everyone, they normally like you. They wanted me to get a tan on the Friday night, so they do a coat Friday, coat Saturday, then coat on show day.
Mhm.
But because I'm obviously not getting there till the Saturday, and my skin takes the tan pretty well. I never have any issues, touch wood, with any of that. So I'll get two coats on the Saturday, and then get my final coat on the show day on the morning. And men's physique's the very first division, so 10 o'clock the show starts, which in some ways is good because it means that my sleep's been waking me up. Most mornings I'm awake at like 4 because I just
Well,
can't sleep anymore. So I'll be up early. I'll get a meal in probably at 5:30, and then just put the last little finishing touches on the physique. And it's going to be really warm, which is good too, because it just means that typically on the days that are warmer, I'm really vascular and the look is a bit better. So that's the plan, man.
are you training on that Saturday before the show?
Yeah, so I'm going to train. I'm going to train up there because I want to make sure that I can get a session in the afternoon. And I'm staying at the Alcyon. Me and MG stayed there last time, so that it's perfect because it's between Sleeman Center and World Gym where we normally go. What's it called? Is it
Stafford?
Stafford? Yep.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like 15 minutes either side of both. So the plan is to go in Saturday afternoon and then just do that GT session, just move it around a little bit. Hopefully not sweat too much. So I'll just have to make sure I stay nice and cool. So I don't know how I'll go with that, but worst case, I'll go in later that night if I need to, and there's less people if it's hot, so it's a bit quieter.
Mhm.
And then wake up the next morning, and then I don't know whether IFBB normally have a pump up area backstage.
At the Sleeman, that they normally
I
have
know
like
that area is there, but I don't know whether they have like dumbbells and bands. So I'm
yeah,
just going to bring my own dumbbells and some bands just in case, because I just want to make sure that, especially first thing in the morning, I think a lot of athletes maybe don't pump up hard enough. And so I am someone that I can't just 10, 15 minutes. I need like a good 30 to 40 minutes pumping up hard. So I want to make sure I've got what I need so that I can ensure that I'm pumped up and ready to go. But they chew through it pretty quick there, I think.
yeah.
Maybe you can borrow some dumbbells from the Alcyon. Isn't that what one of your guys did last time we were
This
there?
is the other thing I forgot to ask Was today. That's what Was did last time. So I may even just do that, just take them and then bring them back. But the only thing is with the checkout time, I don't know what time. I got to check what my checkout time is, and I think it's actually a pretty big show. The numbers for Queensland are meant to be really, really big because I think there was when I went to the workshop up on Gold Coast earlier in the year, there was over 100 people there. So I think out of all of the states, the Queensland show is going to be the biggest. So which is good because that's what I want. I want to see how I can stack up.
For sure, man. Looking forward to it.
See
So
how we
it's
go.
alive for us. We MT and I will be at Ballarat that morning, but
Mhm.
I got guys in the first couple of divisions, but I think that'll kick off from 11. So fingers crossed I'll be there and there'll be some sort of live that we can watch it for that hour. That would be awesome,
Well,
man.
Jen will obviously be there in the crowd, so she'll I think she said she'll record it,
Awesome.
but I'll obviously send you guys some
Yeah.
shots the night before to give you a sneak peek in how we're looking.
Yes.
Awesome. We'll be
Yes.
waiting, eagerly
I
waiting.
can't. It's almost hard to believe that it's coming around.
I know. Next week.
It's
That's
crazy.
crazy. So good. I cannot wait, man. Like, obviously, I want to see you in the flesh too. So I can't wait for when you hit the NBA stage.
Hmm.
This time I saw you was when you hit the stage back in 2020 in Adelaide, back then in December. And that was the
Hmm.
last time I saw you. And we didn't really know each other that much. But I remember seeing you there. I was like, this guy's ridiculous. Look at this guy. look at Scotty. He's amazing. So it'll be good. It'll be so good to see you, mate. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I'm excited for IFBB, but I'm equally excited for that NBA show just to have like you'll be there backstage to have, all of our crew and a big, big support base there. I kind of look at it, the IFBB is just almost like a free hit, so to speak. Like I genuinely don't have any expectations on how I'll go. Hopefully I just don't embarrass myself and look out of place. That's the only thing
Awesome.
that I want to be mindful of. But otherwise, I think I'll be okay. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I saw Vicky last week, and she's always brutally honest, and she gave me some good feedback. So now we just got to let it all unfold, man.
Awesome. Well, you touched on a couple of things that actually we got questions about. So one of the questions was about pump up.
Mm-hmm.
So you touched on that, and it was about pumping up the legs. But let's just talk about pump up in general. And let's start with that question. Why do we not pump up our legs? If it's a male or a female, but I know we're talking about like males obviously too, because we're really, really showing them, and we're showing our conditioning in all our male divisions, especially classic and bodybuilding. But what would be a reason why we wouldn't want to pump up our legs?
Well, firstly, if you're in bodybuilding, you can mask a lot of the detail. Obviously, it's like with, say, the lateral head of the tricep. One of the things as guys, we don't want to put a heap of blood into the triceps because as you start to accrue some cellular swelling, and obviously you're pushing in sodium, so we're promoting blood pressure and we're trying to increase blood volume to certain obviously areas, you can mask detail. So with the legs, like I know for me, if I leave my legs, like when I used to do fitness, if I was to train my legs on say a Tuesday or a Wednesday, when I'm dieted, I suffer from quite a lot of edema in my lower extremity. So I could train legs and then that night look like I don't have any cuts at all, but then I'll wake up the next morning after a sleep and your legs look like an anatomy chart. I can see everything, but then as the day unfolds, it'll fade. And so you think about if you're doing a like leg extensions or squats, you're pushing blood in. A lot of the blood is going to that area, but equally, the larger the muscle group, the more obviously, like let's say that you're squatting, you need oxygen to go to that muscle, so you're pumping more blood to that area. You may be able to blow up that body part and make it look a lot bigger, but you may lose a lot of detail. And equally, you're not sending blood to the areas that you want to try and enhance. So you want to try and keep that detail there. But for example, let's say in physique, I mean, my board shorts will be covering my legs, but they'll be like my VMO will be on display, my calves will be, but equally, I'll usually put some blood into my calves about maybe 20 minutes before I go on, and then I'll have a really good stretch. And usually when that blood is starting to clear out, because obviously your veins take away deoxygenated blood, a lot of that vascularity will then start to come through. So you can be a little bit strategic in that front, but otherwise, upper body wise, that's where we want. At the end of the day, we're trying to blow up and enhance the look as best we can and want it to look as aesthetic as we can. So if you're a bodybuilder in this context, I don't think you would want to mask any of that detail. You want to see striations in the quads. You want to see all of that, all of the cuts and all of the lines. So you're probably going to leave that area alone. I always do. Same with my fitness guys. Like I've got Ethan competing. We won't be putting any blood into his legs. His last leg session went down yesterday. And even then, that wasn't a big, brutal leg session. It was put some blood in, going at about 80%. We're not trying to accumulate any fatigue because with fatigue comes edema. And that's what we obviously don't want. We want to wash that off.
Yeah. I try to tell people, like, especially with a muscle like the quads, the quads is one big muscle group, but there's all intricate muscles within the quads that you're trying to display. And if they all were to expand, they'll start to touch each other and merge into each other and become one big rounded muscle, and you won't be able to see the detail anymore. So I kind of put it in that context is you don't want to pump them up so much that they start to blend into each other because now they're all exploded with a lot of blood, right?
You think there's four parts to it, exactly right. So let's say that you start doing some leg extensions, you put blood in your VMO, and then you start doing some really deep squats, and all of a sudden you start to get some blood into your rec fem, or you do some reverse Nordics, and same, like you're just enhancing the volume of your legs, but you're just losing all of that detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, for bikini athletes or even females, let's call in general, we will see them like pump up their glutes and things like that because we're not looking at the separation between all the glute muscles. We don't really care about the separation between the glute muscles. We just want the glutes to look nice and full. Whereas the quads is a little bit different. Sometimes we want to keep the lines and detail in there, so we don't want to blow them up so that the lines get all merged. Yeah.
The only exception with that is, and I have done this before, and one of the girls springs to mind is I remember Amanda last season. She was one of my fitness girls. Her season got cut short because she got pneumonia. But I remember for NBA, she was like razor sharp. Her glutes were striated. So we actually overpumped them and put a bit more blood. We actually put some blood into her quads to try and take out some of that detail because her conditioning was like borderline figure. And Stu actually said to me afterwards, she like I wouldn't want her to get any sharper than that because then she's definitely figure. So it's like if you had someone that was perhaps a little bit more lower condition and you wanted to take some of that out, you could also use that to try and maybe mask some of that detail. And sometimes you do have that in fitness. If you've got someone that's super, super conditioned and they're like, oh, I don't want the judging to be like, maybe are they figure or are they fitness? So you could use that to your advantage. And equally, same with obviously bikini as well. If you've got someone that maybe is looking a little bit too like, because we can't decide where we lose body composition. So they may be razor sharp in their glutes and you're like, well, I want your glutes to look a lot fuller. So maybe you got to spend a full half an hour just pumping as much blood into them as you can to take out some of that detail and just blow them up.
Yeah. And also too is, I had this conversation with a client this morning, is sometimes we'll not pump certain body parts because they're already proportionally bigger than other parts and it throws their physique out of balance. So if they've got a big upper body, great development, we're like, look, we're not actually going to pump you up at all at the top.
You'll look too big, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes we'll be strategic in what we do pump, what muscles we do pump up. Anything to add on that, MG?
No, I am I'm the biggest water buffalo in my legs, man. 2 sets of leg extensions and I'm got the most edema ever.
Yeah.
And literally, man, the longer the workout goes, I lose all my detail. I store so much water in my legs when I train legs. It's just always happened. And equally when there's no edema around, my legs stay reasonably sharp. But man, 2 sets, not even 2 massive working sets, and I am full of fluid.
Yeah. Now we're talking obviously about Scotty's peak week and peak week plans. There was a question about clients comparing plans and whether that stresses each other out because the plans are different. It's fine. Like clients can compare plans. It's like telling someone your macros, but it doesn't really mean anything to anyone else, really. But I think a better way to kind of answer that question or to give some education to people that are listening is we've all just probably put a bunch of peak week plans together for this weekend, for the coming weekends. So maybe MG will go to you, so we'll give Scotty a bit of a break. But let's kind of talk through just high level, what would be in someone's peak week plan? And then maybe Scotty, we can go into a little bit more in depth if you want to, go into more detail. So like, maybe a bit like, okay, so how do steps look out through every day? What does
absolutely
look like every day? What do we do with nutrition most days? What kind of level of detail or direction do we want to give a client in their plan? Should we be giving them macros per meal? How many meals they should put in before they train on certain, like, what's the kind of detail that we should expect that coaches give clients in a peak week plan?
Yeah, good question. And we've just done a couple of these, and I've just had 2 guys for this week who had 2 peak week plans given out on the same day that like were worlds apart. And if those 2 compared, they would be so confused because the amount of carbohydrates one's taking versus the other is almost, nearly double. One's barely moving and doing, bugger all steps by the end of the week. One, we're pushing it a little bit further for a little bit longer because they're both at different points. So I think understanding where your athlete is sitting when you start the week and thinking, what is your objective for the week? And I think what happens too often, we see it is people do the fancy peak week because that's what everyone else is doing. But really, you have to look at where your athlete's sitting and are they going to get the advantage from doing a typical type peak week strategy where you carb up and you're trying to reduce some of that fatigue. In some cases, that's not the best outcome. And I'll give you an example of someone who's not in a little bit, but let's just talk about a typical week to start. So a plan that I think, the 3 of us would utilize would be some type of document format that basically says, here are your 7 days up until the show. Here is what you're going to train on each of those days. Here is how many steps you're going to do on each of those days. And, if the person's in a really good condition at the start of the week, what you're probably looking to do there is reduce the overall amount of volume as the week goes along to reduce some of that fatigue. And really, post Wednesday, it's certainly how I do it, post Wednesday, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday training sessions, assuming it's a Sunday show, are very much just low intensity circuit style pump sessions. For the same reason Scotty mentioned earlier, not to get into it too much, but yeah, we're basically looking to pump some blood around the body, funnel some of that glycogen around, and ascertain a certain look. In terms of nutrition, the week's probably going to start out with, a low style eating, where you're still potentially digging or, as Scotty said earlier as well, depleting, as people would use, but really you're just trying to start that carbohydrate intake from a base level. And then you'll start to increase carbohydrates as the week goes, either from Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday, if you wanted a couple of extra days to dig in and get leaner. And you're going to utilize intakes that you've probably had a couple of practices at, and Scotty mentioned this as well. So it's no surprise that these things keep coming up, is like, you're not just going to pump in 800 grams of carb. If the most that you've ever had in your off season or on your refeed systems during your prep was 450, right? That just wouldn't be smart. You've got no data to show that you can take that much. And equally, you don't know what sort of result that's going to produce. So I do a bit of an undulating carb load where I'll start off, let's just say for round numbers, someone is on a low day of 175. I might start the Wednesday at 250. I might take Thursday up somewhere around 400. And then if their top end high carb day was 400 to 450 during their last couple of refeeds, I might go as high as 450 to 500. And that'll still give me all of Saturday to make a change if need be. So if we've gone a little bit too hard, we've got a day to work. And if we haven't gone hard enough, we've got a day to still feed up. Mm-hmm. Now, from the carb ups onwards, I think the three of us do the same thing. We will actually tell you what each meal will entail. So for most of my athletes, I'll sit down with them and we'll build that week's peak week meal plan out, sitting together in my office. And that way they don't have to think about anything. So I think the best strategy is the more you can give them, so the less they have to think about or work out on their own, the better the system is for that week. So yeah, as detailed as literally what to have in each meal, so that you can ensure that you're maximizing things like how much carbs you're getting in your pre and post workout meals, and also that you're spacing out meals evenly as well. So that, and this is the risk. Let's just say you've got someone who has been eating 200 grams of carbs and they're macro tracking, and then you give them the peak week to do and manage on their own, and they haven't eaten 500 grams of carb for ages, and they leave way too much too late. And they go in their morning workout, they're only taking in 40 or 50 grams. They only take 40 grams post-workout, and they're actually not topping up at all. Mm-hmm. So that's why I like to take control of all of that. But that's obviously a lot there. But I think the more that you can give, the better. And I'm pretty sure you guys run a very similar system.
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of give a really, really quick recap, steps are managed every day or prescribed every day. Training programs going to be prescribed every day. Their macros are going to be prescribed every single day. When they do the carb up process, you'll actually probably split out how many meals they are going to have and the macros per meal, and potentially how many meals you want them to have before they train, for instance. You might change foods out that are going to digest better. You're going to manage their fiber, obviously, too. You're probably going to manage their electrolyte balance, sodium, potassium, etc. Obviously, their fluid intake. You might be managing supplements, maybe taking things in or out, whether they're using pre-workouts or not. You might utilize some things that we spoke about on other podcasts that I used in Korea with some of the girls is, caffeine tablets if they require them during carb up process, and things like that. So also one thing that you probably do too that you didn't mention is, morning and night weights to see the difference overnight and how much sticks overnight from a bodyweight perspective. So AM and PM weigh-ins, obviously photos or videos during the week too, to check how things are going. Anything that we've missed out there, Scotty?
No, I think you guys you did a pretty good job of covering it. I think keeping a pretty close eye on, as you guys know, I'm big on electrolytes, so I will titrate electrolyte intake based on carbohydrate intake as well. So on the days where we're pushing a bit more carbohydrate, I'll usually raise sodium and I'll raise fluid slightly as well because we do require fluid to partition it. And then I tend to be a little bit OCD in the sense of like the maximum amount of carbohydrate going in with each meal. I never really understood why people would try and push like 4 meals at like 200 grams of carbs. Even some of the things I saw on social media for the Tropic show, certain athletes pushing in huge boluses of carbohydrate in one feeding versus if you just feed it a little bit more volume wise in the sense that let's say that you have 6 or 7 meals if you're pushing in that amount, because typically like if we're talking about males, most males will only be able to partition maybe 100 grams or metabolize 100 to 110 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And anything more than that, it's just sitting in there, and that can obviously cause delayed gastric motility or just, uncomfortable digestion, so to speak. But I think if you're looking at pairing glucose with fructose, we've spoken about this before, they have different transporters to get across the intestinal membrane. So you can, most of the time, these are generic numbers, but roughly 60 grams of glucose per hour. And if you pair it with some fructose, then you can maybe take on an extra 20 grams. Now, it's bespoke to the individual. I would say that I'm someone who's probably on the higher end. I reckon I can tolerate around about 100 grams. And typically those that are able to eat and that are required to eat large amounts of carbohydrate in the improvement season are usually able to tolerate greater amounts per feeding window. So I could push in 100 grams of carbs per hour. I've tried it, and I know that I don't get any distension. I can partition it, I can absorb it. So like I mentioned with the cream of rice meal, adding some banana so that I know that I've got some fructose with that glucose so that it's a mixed blend, or using like the Maximus sports drink, which is a sucrose blend, which is a disaccharide. So it's a fructose and a glucose blend. So I think if you wanted to, we're getting a little bit caught up in minutia, but sometimes if there's large amounts of carbohydrate and you've got athletes that need to take on more, I'll go down that route. And even with Ethan, I think his highest day, I think we push up to maybe 475 grams of carbs, but equally he's been digging pretty hard the last few weeks. And so he hasn't had that amount of food in terms of the volume for a while. So we're actually using a sucrose blend in terms of a drink to be able to get in about 80 grams of that carbohydrate, because then it means that I only have to feed him 400 grams worth of carbs in terms of actual food. Yep. And he can drink that and it will be digested and metabolized a lot easier. So it's not going to cause any duress. So I think things like that, just to be really conservative, but I think if you work off that window of around about 60 to 80 grams max for females, and then for males somewhere in the realms of 80 to 100 grams per meal, and then factoring in that if you're adding lots of sodium to that meal, you're going to delay gastric emptying. If you're adding lots of fats to that meal, you're going to delay gastric emptying. And so again, you're not getting the nutrients into the blood when you want them. But equally, we can use things like salt and sodium at the end of the day when we are trying to delay absorbing those nutrients straight away. So there's that. And then just being mindful of, like we've said all along, if you're tracking how much sodium and how much potassium you're consuming throughout the prep, it makes your peaking intervention a lot more predictable, because you're like, that you have 3,000 milligrams of sodium every day. So when we pump you up on show day, to be able to get a really outrageous, disgusting result, we know that we're going to probably have to supersede that, or pushing in that amount over a shorter window of time to be able to increase blood pressure and blood volume. Mm-hmm. Versus if you're just like, I take 2 salt tablets. Like, why aren't I pumping up?
Yeah, really, really important points that you've mentioned, and like no surprise that we all kind of do the exact same thing, right? We all have the same principles, so that's really good. I think it's really useful for some people, just because people are going to go through peak week, and there's maybe some things that they're expecting to see or they're not seeing. So at least they know, potentially what goes into a peak week and what kind of things they should be seeing in their plan.
Yeah, and just like to touch on why it's so pointless to compare plans, right? And why it's just going to serve you no purpose is you're 2 different athletes, you have completely different genetics, you might be at different levels of condition for different divisions, you might have started from different places, one might have done 5 shows and it might be their first show, might be the first time they've ever been this lean. One might have a job that, forces them to be on their feet all day. One might sit at a desk. There's like a million factors that go into it. So there's no point making any sort of comparison because no two people are the same.
It's like saying, why do you have brown eyes and I have green eyes? It's literally exactly the same thing. Like our physiology is completely different. So how you metabolize carbohydrate and the rate at which and what you need to top up versus what MG does versus what I need, everyone's different. So it's so irrelevant. It's just like, oh, how much are you able to diet on? It doesn't make any difference because it still sucks all the same when you're inside out shredded. So it literally is, and I always revert back to that statement, but it's the same thing, man. Just put your faith in your trust and your trust in your coach. And hopefully you've had enough time to trial an intervention. And there are some times where you don't. And I've got an athlete that I've had to really push all the way into the back end of peak week. Not what I would normally want to do. We won't have to do that at the other shows, but it's part and parcel of just ensuring that we are where we need to be conditioning wise. And the trade-off is a lot of fatigue that's accumulated with that. So we have a shorter window to attenuate it. So sometimes you don't always have the luxury and you could play the card, you know what, I'm going to wash off fatigue and I'm going to accept that maybe we're going to come in at 90%, or you can be like, I'm going to go for 95, 97% and I'll roll the dice and I'll just hope that I have enough time to mitigate it, wash it off. And that's okay too sometimes. So I think it's really important that you're having that open dialogue with your coach, and obviously coach to the athlete as well. Because if you're doing that, like say the approach that I'm taking with one of my athletes, if I hadn't communicated the rationale and the methodology behind why we're doing that, they could be like, is this normal? Everyone else is talking about why they're taking it easy and I'm slogging all the way up until Thursday and then we're pushing food in later. But obviously there's a method, to the madness. And again, like everything, it's bespoke to the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. We have that conversation all the time. It's natural. I get it. People always compare. On Instagram, I saw this person doing that. On Instagram, I saw this person doing that. And then you have to kind of explain the reasons why they're potentially doing that, why it's different to you and the position that you're in. But it's good. Like, it's good that clients are trying to educate themselves. They're trying to find out the reasons why you're doing things a certain way. It actually means a lot when they are trying to find out more about what's going on. So it means that they're interested and they're bought into the process.
The one thing that you just don't want to do is please don't be the person that takes alcohol. And if your coach gives it to you, just say no, because it's the dumbest thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Like even from a digestion perspective, not only does it blunts glycolysis, like you can't do it. As soon as your body takes on ethanol, it's a drug. It wants to get it out of the blood. So everything else that it does, all of your other exercise metabolism pathways, glycolysis, lipolysis, all of it goes out the window. You can't do anything but basically remove that from the blood. And you're looking at per unit of alcohol, you're looking at around about maybe 70 calories worth an hour in terms of alcohol that you can metabolize per hour. So if you're like, your coach is like, I want you to take 2 shots of vodka, and then afterwards you're going to start trying to load carbohydrate and you're in for a real shit show. So don't be that guy and don't do that.
Yeah.
And don't be that coach either.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Slight change of pace, but still obviously on comps. So last week, I don't know if you were here for that discussion, Scotty, if you had left, but we spoke about competitors reversing into a show. I think maybe you had left by then.
Yeah, I remember. I watched the whole episode just so that I made sure I was across it all.
So we had kind of like a follow-up question about that. They said competitors reversing into a show because they are ready early. Some of them look like they're too lean and have lost shape for their division. Are they trying to reverse that? So they're asking, I guess the wording is not the best, right? Is because there's a difference between you're ready early, now we've got to maintain what you've got and we can push more food in, wash some fatigue, make you feel a little bit better, but we're trying to maintain a look, right? Because you're there. Compared to maybe some people's thinking is, I've gone too far and now I have to bring it back a little bit. And, I was in that position too, right? So where, sometimes you get too lean and try to bring it back, and you can't, right? So, and we do see it. Like I know what they're talking about. We've seen it. I've seen it recently where um, people are just getting too lean for their division, and now they are feeding up, reversing, maintaining, whatever you want to call it. They're bringing food back up, but sometimes it's too far gone. And I actually had this conversation with someone this morning who wanted me to review their photos and how they went in the comp comparison to what they did last year. And I gave them that feedback. I said, look, last year's physique just needed a little bit to be a little bit leaner. You've now pushed way past that point. That they're a light person and they're 3 kilos below their old stage weight when maybe they needed to be about 1. So they've pushed way past. They've gotten a little bit too lean, and they've lost their shape. And also they also found it hard to carb up and to kind of give their physique, get the physique back to life. So the issue is if you get too lean for your division, what's going to happen, or mostly happen, is you're also going to lose some lean mass during that time. So if we're talking about females, just for instance, but we can talk about males too, is we see commonly that girls will get really, really lean, and maybe too lean for, say, bikini, and they've lost all the shape in their glutes. And no amount of refeeding is going to bring that shape back. Like, sure, it'll come back slightly because you'll be a little bit flat, but once you've lost that tissue, you can't regain it. No matter how much reversing into a show, feeding into a show, that tissue is not going to come back during that time. You might give your physique a little bit of life back, but the shape that you've lost is gone. So being really, really mindful of just not trying to get your competitor as lean as you can get them or the leanest they've ever been. It's finding that balance of what's going to make them look the most competitive, right? And I was having another chat with a client this morning is some people you have to decide what trade-off you're gonna have, right? There's some competitors that I know that if I get them too lean, they will lose their shape, right? And there's some others that I know that have the muscle mass underneath. I can push them a little bit harder to get a little bit more conditioning out of them for their division, right? We talk about in bikini, sometimes people trying to push for conditioning to bring out the glute ham tie-in. So they'll look good in their back pose, but their other 3 poses, their front pose and the other 2 side poses where you see glute projection, you don't see your tie-in, you just see your projection of your glutes. That shape's all gone now. So you're basically, robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're going to look good in one back shot, one shot. Out of any other 3 poses, you're not going to look so competitive. So I've actually have that with clients at the moment where I'm not going to push them any harder to get a ham tie-in or to make it look any more prominent when I know it's going to wreck their other 3 shots. It's not worth it. In the off season, it'd be about developing more and growing more so that next time we diet down, the muscle mass is there. We don't have to get them that lean to make their muscle show and pop. So we just got to be really, really careful that even though us 3 boys love conditioning and we're all about, trying to get conditioned for your show, it's sometimes for physique competitors or female competitors, but even for guys, you want to find the correct balance. You don't want to get too lean for no good reason. And we spoke about this, over nearly a year ago with myself, is I just got too lean for my show for no good reason, where I probably lost a bit of muscle mass and a bit of size, and it affected how competitive I was, right? So just being mindful of that. So when this person said, are they trying to reverse the fact that they got too lean and lost shape? That damage is done. That damage is already done. What do you find that too, MG?
Yeah, and the other thing as well, man, is goes back to the old thing that comes up in our sport all the time. It's like everyone's so different. I've got athletes who I can push for a long period of time and just look like they never lose tissue. And then ones who, can handle bursts of 5 or 6 weeks and, look like that they're losing tissue at a faster rate. Just genetically, they're just so different. So it's just so individualized again, man. But look, you nailed it, man. At the end of the day, it's the trade-off. It's like risk versus reward. And what is going to be the better outcome for you is looking a little bit smaller in some shots to be the standout with condition your play, and that's going to be your strength. Or are you better off to hold some size and maybe be, equal conditioning to some of the other competitors to play the size game? So I always just say, where are we going to stand out? Do I want to be, for example, the leanest in bikini maybe on the borderline and be a little bit too lean, but that's going to be like my standard. So if I'm in a lineup and, the girls have got reasonable shape, but none of them hit conditioning, then maybe I'll be picked because I've got the best condition. So it's like, it's always, you've got to pick your strength and go with it. And once you make that decision, you just got to own it.
Yeah, most likely not. Like, if you're the leanest bikini competitor, but you've lost all your shape, yeah, you won the most condition on stage award. That's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we just have to be really, really careful of assessing someone's physique and what's going to make them present the most competitive physique for what they currently have.
Yeah.
And not just try to get them the leanest and for it to be a detriment to their shape.
For sure. I think one of the places where it gets difficult is, and this happens a lot in, say, like bikini or that type of division, is because of how different everybody is with how they store and distribute and burn their body fat, is a lot of the time you're going to have girls who are potentially maybe spot on in the lower half for bikini, but just razor sharp at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So in that instance, you got to really have a think about, would I prefer to be where I am now and have a perfect waist down for most of my bikini poses, but look a little bit too lean and vascular, maybe in my top shots, when you don't have a choice as to where it's going to come from. So in that instance, I would say, well, if the bottom half's perfect, but we're a little too sharp on the top, I would rather that outcome.
100%. Yeah. Because in that case, they've still going to have great shape. I wouldn't try to diet them down for fitness, for instance, and they lose all their shape.
Well, and then they're out muscled too.
And they're out muscled. So you're in a good position. And we see that too. We see girls at the moment that have just got absolutely shredded, but they never had the muscle mass to start with. And now they're so lean that they can only go in fitness when they probably should have not get lean and they should have just stayed in bikini. And it's, because maybe for whatever reason, the coach didn't understand what was actually sitting underneath everything, or the coach just decided, let's just see how lean we can get this person and they'll be the best condition on stage, which is not always the winner. It's someone that has the best balance of everything. And so sometimes you need to really pick your division wisely based on your physique and how it looks in the off season, and whether when you start to unveil things, whether they actually have the mass to play in sports and fitness, or whether they should just stick to bikini at the moment, and etc. And
one of the things we spoke about last week, we're like, where do we start the analysis of a new client?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I think we agreed. We start at level of muscularity and then we work backwards from there.
Yeah. If you don't have the level of muscularity at the top end of your off season for fitness or sports, you're not going to have it by the end of your prep. You're probably going to be a little bit smaller. So you would never even try to diet someone down if they just don't have the muscle to start with.
It's like me going to Scott now and saying, oh, I'm only doing open bodybuilding now. It's like, that's great. And open bodybuilding is awesome. But like, if I got to stand next to, say, like a Ben Hightong, it's going to look ridiculous, right? He's got so much muscle. So like, you got to be a little bit realistic as well.
Yeah. And, you probably get this all the time, MG, and I've gotten it too, being a promoter. Reach out to promoters, reach out to the judges and ask them to assess your physique and what category suits you the best.
Yeah.
You've probably gotten that 101 times leading up to the A and B show coming up this weekend, right?
In the last 2 weeks, maybe 50.
Yeah. So people sending you messages, hey, you obviously know the division, right? You're the promoter for the show. Obviously, we're the promoters for Adelaide. I've actually had people reach out to that has a very, very well-known popular coach, and the coach has said, hey, this is what I think. Go ask the promoter and see what they think. And they messaged me and I gave them my feedback so they know where they sit. And even when I'm at, say, like a workshop or something, and someone asks me, every single time I said, this is my opinion, but the judge is right there. Just go out to ask the judge. They're like right there. And the judge will, all the time is back to what I've said, which is great. But, speak to the judges, speak to the promoters, and allow them to give you the feedback that you need so you know what division you need to be in.
Yeah.
And that's the customer, right? We've got to sell something to the customer. Ask what the customer likes and what they want.
And like how I give responses in that instance is, I know what everyone wants. Everyone would love this is your perfect division, but in a lot of cases, actually in most cases, there is no perfect answer, right? You might have someone who's great at the top, but is like lacking conditioning in the bottom, or, has an awesome upper half and just doesn't quite have the muscularity in the legs. So in a lot of cases, there is no, this is your perfect division. But like for me, it's always like, all right, well, if I was coaching, this is what I would do. you're a standout here and here, which meets the criteria of that division more than it does that criteria. And I would rather be muscularity on point and a little bit over conditioned there than I would be in there. So it's really just about picking where you stand the best chance based on past experience.
Yep. And no one is ever perfect for any division. Even the winners, the best of the best, still have areas for improvement to be even better in that division too. So, and that's what it's all about, this sport, right? Is trying to improve over time, to get feedback and to evolve. So again, I was saying to a client this morning, I've got so many bikini girls in the team. They've all got strengths and weaknesses, all of them. I even said to her, I was like, I could put you all in a lineup and I wouldn't even know who would win, because there's things that I can pick apart on others, and others that have strengths over the other. Like, good luck to the judges this season. I don't know. It's going to be tough, right? It's going to be tough.
Yeah, we're gonna see it at the Vic show this weekend, man. Lineups are big, and it's going to be the first good taste of the competitive season. I can't believe we're about to kick off. We've been working up towards this day for months and months and months. We've got a massive show on Sunday, which we're looking forward to, and then it kicks off. Scotty's show the week after, and before we know it, we'll blink and it'll be season over.
Yeah. Look, MG, I want to say something, because you shared the numbers for the A and B show coming up. They're not fully confirmed yet, but you shared me the numbers, and it's the biggest show yet that you've ever had. And I just want to say congratulations and how proud I am of you.
Thank you, brother.
You took over that state, and you grew it to the biggest it's ever been since I've ever known A and B. So, yeah, credit to you. Obviously, all the support that you get from Gen 2 is absolutely amazing, but credit to you. You should be so proud of what you've done with that state. I'm really, really proud of you. So congratulations, brother.
I appreciate it so much. And I've just been lucky to have so many good people around me, helping me, supporting me, and giving me the chance. And, a lot of the coaches across Vic who have, given me an opportunity to have their athletes on stage. And, the one thing that we have done, since I've been there, is the shows have just run really, really well. And that was already happening. That's what got me on board. So, once more people got the opportunity to see it, and hopefully this Sunday will be, the grandest of them all. But yeah, to put it into perspective, I think when I started, it was, something like 20, and 20 went to 30, and 30 went to 50, and now 50 is going to be somewhere closer to that 80, 85 mark. So
that's crazy.
It's exciting, man. And it's, it was always something that, we got into, all of us, because we just love the sport so much. And I think Sunday's going to be pretty special. I'm probably going to have a few moments Sunday when, there's a big crowd and the stage is packed full of competitors, where I'm just going to be in heaven.
Yeah.
The joy of just watching the thing that I love the most happen.
And sipping on an ice cold Monster, to a celebratory beverage.
Yes, well, I know
I'll be sipping on them, that's for sure.
Oh, Scotty, I do have some good news for you. Is I can confirm that Monster are unable to attend this year. However, Monsters will be delivered directly to MG this year. So,
and did we get the request on the peach?
I just said, do your best to put some peaches in there. Love peach. We love peach.
Would appreciate that.
But MT, I will have some sample meals for you to take away and try as well, brother.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a great show. It's going to be a great show. And if anyone is attending and they see us, please come and say hello.
Yeah, and guys, if I'm looking stressed and my face is all red, just come give me a hug.
Yeah, if you want to see MG stressed out, come to the show.
Just come give me a hug. Just say, MG, take a breath. It's good because, our group of mates, we've got a circle of friends that we all hang out with. You guys, the listeners, know Friday night subs and all that, but all the boys do come down to the show. And, whether it's Drew or Charlie, they always, on show, they make multiple efforts to come up to me and just pull me aside and go, just take a deep breath. Everything's going beautifully. There's nothing else you need to do.
Yeah, and eat too, bro. I'm always having to nag you to eat your food.
I struggle, don't I? I do struggle. Yeah.
All right. Let's end on this, because I know you guys have to go soon. So a couple of podcasts ago, we spoke about a competitor that, Scotty, you started to help with their prep, just to give them a little bit better experience. So someone reached out and said, what did Scotty do? How did he fix it? What did he actually do, and how are things going? So Do you want to give us a little bit of an update, or tell us what you did with this competitor that was in a certain position and how you've gotten to the position that they are in now?
Yeah, so without going into too much of their specifics, but they weren't probably in the most advantageous position as what they perhaps could have been. First thing that we did was just wash off some of the fatigue. So they were really just like beat up, and just in doing that, pushing in a bit more food, being a lot more specific around certain foods, nutrient timing, the right amount of fiber, the breakdown of macronutrients, pushing that in, we got a response almost instantly. And I think having a look at the data, I think we're about 6 kilos down in that time from where we were, which I think that was only like, it was maybe 7 weeks ago or something. Like,
Wasn't long.
yeah,
Wasn't
yeah.
long.
So we've made some pretty crazy refinement, and we've had to dig a lot more the last little while. But initially, it was more about just giving back to the system, wash off some of the fatigue, get them feeling good again, get them training better again, and also getting the things like that, like the training. It wasn't, as everyone knows that I'm very meticulous with attention to detail, structure, training, all that sort of stuff. And I guess just putting those 1%ers in play and building a system around the athlete rather than necessarily making the athlete fit the system. I think you need to factor that in. They were well and truly overtrained, doing too much. And so just stripping it back, focusing on quality, and pushing in a bit more food initially. Even now that we're digging, it's still a lot more food on where they were at. But there comes a time for everyone where you just need to embrace the suck, which is funny because this person literally has that listed on multiple locations. But equally, all I did was draw up a plan after having a really good chat, and obviously getting all of the information that I need. And credit to this athlete, because they went away and have just absolutely sent it. And I think they're going to reap a lot of the rewards come showtime this season. So I'm very, very excited to see them up there in the flesh, and seeing some reward for effort, because not everyone, is built for this sport. And it does, especially, when you're in really rough, murky waters, it can be really challenging. It would have been easy for them to just say, no, I'm just going to hang it up. Let's go into the improvement season. But we're able to salvage it, and credit to them. And granted, very, very professional. I could say jump, they'll say how high. But equally, as you guys know, I place a lot of emphasis on improving the overall nutritional and training literacy of the athletes, so that they understand there's a rationale behind what we're doing, and understanding the decisions that are made and why we're making them. And equally, like all of my athletes or anyone, if they're ever unsure as to why, always ask a question, because if your coach can't justify why they're doing what they're doing, then they probably shouldn't be doing it.
You should be able to talk to your coach. You should be able to ask them a bunch of questions. You should be able to form your own opinions, educate yourself in any way you need, and your coach should be able to justify anything that they're putting in place for you, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's end it there.
Yep.
I'm excited for this weekend.
It's going to be a good weekend.
Really excited. And then obviously next week we can review the shows that we're at, and we'll go through and we'll break down some of the placings and the reasons what we think went down, and we'll give a full review, and we'll try to do that every single week, because it's actually a show every single week. So it's going to be fun. And then obviously the next potty we'll be reviewing, the potty after that we'll be reviewing your show, Scotty.
Yep, and you guys can tell me
Yeah,
what I did good, what I did bad. Get the red marker out.
Keep sending the updates through in the group chat. We want to keep an eye on you. If you want to bounce anything off us, man, we love being a part of it, man. So otherwise, I'll just bring the delivery of the gluten-free muffins down to your place when you next need it.
That's it, man.
Amazing.
That is it. You're not going to be there for NBA though, are you, bro?
I'm in the Maldives.
Yeah,
the Maldives.
You poor thing.
Running the fitness retreat. Actually, I just had to because you fly into Sri Lanka, right? And then it's a long stopover, so you get like this transit accommodation because it's like a 10-hour stopover. But part of the flight is you get somewhere to go and have a nap. And I just this morning booked that and looked online at the reviews. It's like 737 one-star reviews.
Oh no!
You don't get a choice in it.
Oh no! Hopefully survive.
So, and I'm flying solo because Meve's heading up with the crew the day before, but I'm going to be at the ICN VIX because I've got 6 or 7 that day. So I'll be heading up solo. So, but yes, I won't be there for that show,
When do
unfortunately.
you fly out?
Sunday the 8th.
Fly out of Australia?
Sunday the 8th. So I'll be there for the Saturday show, which is the boys, but not the Sunday show.
I mean, Scotty. When does Scotty fly out of Australia for the end of the season?
Oh, I fly out the night after, the day out, literally the morning after the Oz Pro Show for ICN. So I compete on the Saturday night, and then fly
22nd?
out, we fly out to Bali, yeah, the next morning, the 22nd.
You fly out on the Sunday.
Sunday morning, man, yeah.
Wow.
I'll be at that
It's
show.
literally like we're gonna have everything like packed and ready. It'll just be obviously just washing the my stage shorts from that I've worn that night, and then Jen said she'll just be able to wash them and get them dried, and then we'll just take them with us. And then because we're gonna have three nights in Bali, I wanted to just have that time and also to break it up for the kids because we got to go to the UK and then I got to fly out a week. We fly to Bali on the Sunday and we fly to the UK on the Wednesday.
Hmm.
But then the week after that, I fly out to Italy obviously for the Worlds.
Worlds, yeah. So, because the Saturday ICN Nationals is the men's show and the Sunday is a female, right?
Not the pro show. I thought the pro show was all in the one. Actually, I think the pro show is all in the one night. Normally, they do everything on the Saturday. It's all of the open divisions.
I thought they were splitting it up like men's.
Same as Nationals last year. I thought it was the Saturday, then the pro show at night, then all the other divisions that are not the opens on the Sunday.
Oh, they're doing it that way.
I think so.
Check.
Anyway, we'll have a look.
I'm pretty sure that's what they
Either way,
can-
we'll be there and we'll say our goodbyes and lots of hugs before you leave.
Well, yeah, well, maybe because we'll be there reasonably late, I'll have to go and train after that because I'm going to be flying the next day. It's either that, if I'm running on fumes, I'll probably go and train. So maybe we can all just go and instead of going out for a celebratory meal, we can go out for some celebratory deadlifts.
Sounds good.
We'll just send it.
Done. Sounds like a plan.
Looking forward to it.
We'll see you very, very soon. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Guys.
Appreciate the support.
See ya.